Welcome to Armand Academy. Like and subscribe for more content and drop your doubts in the comments. Share with your friends and classmates. For private tuition in these subjects across all boards and universities, contact me here or the link in the description. Let's get started. Alexia Limited invited applications for 1 lakh equity shares of 10 each at a premium of 10 per share. All right. And we have application 9 including a premium of 6, allotment 8 including a premium of 4, final call, okay, first and final call 3. Applications received for 1,50,000 shares, and we got two categories. Excess money was adjusted towards allotment and first and final call. That means we're not refunding anybody anything. Okay, and apart from that, they're telling us that Shekhar, who had applied for 1,200 shares, failed to pay the final call, belonged to category B. Pass necessary journal entries for the above transactions in the books of Alexia Limited. Now, normally, I would have made a single column note for offered and applied, but when we have category A, category B like this, it'll be better if I have offered in one column and applied in another. Okay, and why you will understand as we go along. So we have offered 1 lakh shares. And against these 1 lakh shares, we have received applications for 1,50,000 shares. Applicants for 90,000 were allotted 70. So people who applied for 90 were allotted 70. Okay, similarly, the people who applied for 60 were allotted 30. People who applied for 60 were allotted 30. Okay, and now just make sure that it matches. Okay, so we have 1 lakh here, and if you add these two, you'll get 1 lakh. We've got 1,50,000 here, and if you add these two, you get 1,50,000. Okay, so we have basically looked after. Okay, we have looked after all the applications. Now, I will go over here and write the face value is 10. Okay, and at a premium of 10. So it's 10 plus 10 at the time of application. And by the way, it's already over here, but I'm going to make the note in any case. Okay, application, at the time of application, it is 9 per share, including 6 premiums. So I can write this as 3 plus 6. Okay, why? Because if it's 9 altogether and 6 is premium, 3 will be, okay, face value. Then we have allotment. We have allotment, which is 8 per share, including premium of 4. So if premium is 4, that means face value will be 4. And then they're telling us that the first and final call, first and final, okay, first and final call is 3. And now I will add it up. 3 plus 4 is 7 plus 3 is 10. And 6 plus 4 is also 10. So 10 plus 10. And we have looked after everybody. Next, excess money received on applications were adjusted towards allotment and first call. Fine. You have 1,200 shares who did not pay the first and final call. So I would write 1,200 unpaid over here. Okay, and it's very important to make sure that we mark it as, okay, this is A, this is B, right? So I will say B. Okay, I'll just write it over here for now. Anything else that they've told us? Pass journal entries for the above transactions in the books of Alexia Limited. So first things first, okay, journal entries in the books of Alexia Limited. Okay, back. Open calls in arrears and calls in advance. Okay, because when we are adjusting the excess money received at the time of application to allotment, we could very well have done it to first call and second call also, or to calls in advance. Now these guys are telling us to do calls in advance, so we will do calls in advance. When the person is not paying, we could have just left it as no entry, but they're telling us to debit calls in arrears. Okay, so even if you were doing a normal sum, you debit calls in arrears, okay, and you credit calls in advance and reverse it when you receive the money. That is also acceptable. But over here, that particularly telling us to do it. So yes, we will do it. Now, first step, standard journal entry, we're getting money. What are we getting? Application money. Debit what comes in. Okay, so we have bank, bank account, debit. And notice how we have got separate application and allotment. So it will be two, equity share, equity share, equity share application. Okay, application account. And I will go back to check the numbers. And how much was applied for? 1,50,000. How much is the application? 3 plus 6, which is 9. Again, we have to multiply application into the amount applied, which 1,50,000 into 9. Okay, and if you know your table for 15 nines are 135. Okay, so it's basically 13,50,000. And I can simply go there and write 13,50,000, 13,50,000 being being share application money, share application application money received. Okay, and of course, if you want to put more details in the narration, feel free to do that. Going back, our next step is to transfer what we have received in the share application money to the share capital account. Okay, so the standard journal entry for that. Okay, I'm going to just draw a line like this. And we credited the share application account. Now we debit it. Okay, so equity share application account debit. We're taking the money credited to the equity share application account, application account. Okay, we are taking the money from here and transferring it to share capital, to share capital, and be very, very specific, equity share capital. Okay, equity, equity share. But there was extra money received. And they've told us it will be adjusted against future calls. Okay, so the amount that can go to allotment, we can credit. Okay, we can credit allotment. But before that, keep in mind we issued shares at a premium, and some of that premium has been received at the time of application. So before I can do anything with allotment, I have to credit securities, securities premium, premium card. Okay, and let me leave a little bit of space. Okay, and now going further down. Okay, going further down, we have two, two equity share allotment account, equity share allotment account for the amount of money that we can transfer to share allotment. Now, anything over and above that will go to calls in advance account. To calls, calls in advance. Okay, calls in advance account. Now I start filling up the numbers. So first of all, the 13,50,000 we credited in the previous entry, that we debit by default. Okay, and I'm going to pick the low hanging fruit. What is easy to do, I will do first. So first of all, how many shares did I offer? One. At the time of application, it was 3 and 6. So 1 lakh into 3 is 3 lakhs, and 1 lakh into 6 is 6 lakhs. Okay, this part is easy. The next part, we have to think a little bit. Okay, because we have issued shares and accordingly allotted for two different categories. And we have to see for both of these categories, what is the situation. Okay, we have to calculate an excess. The asked for 1,50,000, they got 1 lakh. How much is excess? 50,000. Okay. These people asked for 90, they got 70. How much is excess? 20,000. These people asked for 60, they got how much? 30. Excesses 30,000. Why am I doing all of this? Because I need to find out how much money is going to allotment. Okay, and I have 20,000 shares over here. Extra amount received. Okay, so this is excess shares. Excess amount is going to be how much? It is going to be 20,000 into 9, which is 1,80,000. Similarly, 30,000 into 9, which is 2,70,000. Okay, so if you want, I can label this excess amount, okay, whatever excess shares. Okay, make a nice table, neat table for yourselves. Now, this is the excess amount. The question is at the time, okay, at the time of allotment, how much is needed? Okay, so at the time of allotment money needed for each category. And I don't really need to do the math for the total. If you want to do, you can do, but not. Okay, how much of allotment money is needed for category A? All right, they've been offered only 70,000 shares. How much allotment is required? 4 plus 4, which is 8. 8 into 70, I think is 5 lakhs. Okay, I think it is 5 lakh 60. Okay, and we can do this calculation one more time. Okay, 8 into 70, 7 8s are 56, 5 lakh 60 is what is needed. For the other category, they've been allotted 30. 30, and again we multiply that into 8. Okay, and what you're going to end up with is 2 lakh 40. All right, so why am I doing this? I have an excess amount that is carried forward. I have the amount needed at the time of allotment. And the difference, if any, will go into calls in advance. Okay, and look at for group A. Okay, for group A, we have a situation where the extra money they paid at the time of application is 1,80,000, and the money required at the time of allotment is 5,60,000. Okay, so that means nothing gets carried forward into calls in advance. Frankly, at the time of allotment, these guys have to pay some amount of money. And how much of money they have to pay also we can find by subtracting 5,60,000 and 1,80,000, but we'll come to that later. For now, I only want to know how much is going to go to calls in advance. And that is going to be 2,70,000 minus 2,40,000 because that's a positive number. Okay, and therefore I know my calls in advance is going to be 30. All right. So how much money is going into allotment? Okay, that is one of the entries. Okay, and frankly, I'm going to use the balancing figure for that, and then I'll come back here and show you how it's calculated. Anyway, calls in advance is 30. Okay, calls in advance is 30. And notice how we don't have anybody else except for allotment. Okay, so let's work backwards and then I'll go back and show you how it's done. 13 lakh 50, and we have 3 plus 6, which is 9 lakh 30. So if I was to simply take 13 lakh 50 and subtract 9 lakhs, I get 4 lakh 50. And from that, if I subtract 30,000, I get 4 lakh 20, which is going to be my share allotment account anyhow. Okay, so I mean, this is the easy way to do it, but if you really want to make sure that you're right, okay, then there is a slightly more difficult way where we have the amount of excess amount which is getting transferred, okay, which is getting transferred to allotment. Now, the amount needed, allotment money needed is 5 lakh 60. But group A is giving only 1 lakh 80. Okay, so A is giving 1 lakh 80. A is giving 1 lakh 80. Group B, how much is needed? 2 lakh 40. How much are they giving? 2 lakh 70. But we need how much? 2 lakh 40. Add. Okay, and if I take 1 lakh 80 and add 2 lakh 40, 1 lakh 80 plus 2 lakh 40, 3 lakh 40, I think this is 4 lakh 20. Okay, well, you can check. Now, how much we get as a balancing figure here? 4 lakh 20. Okay, so either way, you know how it is done. Now, being share application money, share application money transferred, transferred to share capital account, to share capital account, and excess. And okay, and before getting to excess, to share capital account, okay, securities premium, secure, okay, maybe I can say and securities premium and securities premium with excess money credited to share allotment, share allotment, and falls in advance account. Okay, and if you want, put account, squeeze account here also. Now, so much I've written. If you have just written being share application money transferred to share capital account, securities premium, share allotment, and calls in advance, I'm sure that is also fine. You just have to give a gist in this narration. Look at how much I've written in this narration. Anyway, moving forward, we have to go to allotment. Okay. So remember, when we do issue of shares, the first entry, which is application, we always start with receipt and then go to transfer. Okay, so what's happened over here is we have bank account debit to share application. Okay, we have got share application to capital, but going forward it will always be the level. Okay, for example, allotment, share allotment to share capital, bank to share allotment, first call to share capital, bank to first call, second call to share capital, bank to second call, and on and on and on. Okay, but in the sum, we have only till first call, and that's why we call it the final call. Anyway, I will first draw a line. I will first draw a line. And then I will say share, and not just share, equity share. Equity, equity share allotment account. Okay. See over here also I've done equity share allotment account. Allotment account debit to equity share capital account to equity share capital account. But I think we have a premium component. So let me quickly check. Is there a premium? Yes, there's a premium. So I will also credit the securities premium. Okay, and this entry should be relatively easy because the offered is only 1 lakh shares and it will be broken up 4 and 4. Okay, so first of all, allotment itself will be 8 into 1 lakh, which is 8 lakhs, which is 8 lakhs. And then 4 into 1 lakh, which is 4 lakhs. And again, 4 into 1 lakh, which is 4 lakhs. Okay, being share allotment money. Okay, being share allotment money due. Money due. Next, we have to receive the share allotment money. We debit what comes in bank account debit. All right, and we will credit share equity share. Okay, be careful. Equity share allotment. Okay. Okay, and let us see how this is done. We will go back here. How much should we, under normal circumstances, receive? It would have been the same 8 into 1. But some people have paid before. And we know how much they paid because we have credited. Okay, let me go upstairs. We have credited the allotment account by 4,20,000. Now, if we've already got this, obviously we won't take that much money. So out of 8 lakhs, 4,20,000 is already paid. Okay, so how much is left? 3,80,000. Simply put 3,80,000 over here and 3,80,000 over here. End of story. Being allotment money received. Short and sweet. Next, we have to deal with first and final call. And keep in mind, that the first and final call, unlike share allotment, we had an element of premium. Okay, we had to deal with securities premium. But if you look at first and final call, at least at the time of transfer, receipt, we have to deal with the headache of unpaid money. But at the time of transfer, we simply have to think of 3. How many shares? 1 lakh. So, short and sweet, we will do equity share, equity share, first and final call account, debit, 3 lakhs. 1 lakh into 3 lakhs. Okay, how am I getting this? Again, 1 lakh into 3 lakhs. Okay, 2, equity share, capital, account. Same 3 lakhs. Being first and final call money due. Right? And now I'm going to have to extend this journal a little going forward. We have to receive the final call money. Okay, so we debit what comes in. We first draw line. Okay, and obviously please use a scale when you do it. Now, debit what comes in. Bank account debit. Bank account debit. Bank account debit for the money that we receive. We know in the sum that 1,200 from category B is not paid. Some money is not paid. How much money we'll see later? Some money is not going to get paid. Calls in arrears. Calls in arrears will be debited. Then we also know from before that some money was paid in advance. Calls in advance, and how much also we know? 30,000. We know full 30,000 is going up because there's no other entry after this. Okay, so calls in calls in advance. Okay, and both of these accounts, okay, calls in arrears account, calls in advance account, debit. And for calls in advance, I know the number 30,000. So once and for calls in advance, we are debiting by 30,000. Okay, we have debited calls in advance by 30,000, and now we will do to equity share, first and final call account. I debited it here. I've credited it here. How much did I debit? 3 lakhs. So accordingly, I will credit 3 lakhs. Now we have to think a little bit for the other two numbers. Okay. How much of money was not paid? Let's do the math. The person belonged to category B. How many shares did he apply for? 1,200. He asked for 1,200 in a category where people asking for 60 got 30. They got half. So person asked for 1,200, they would get X. Cross multiply if you want to, but I mean, I think it's straightforward. If you have to cross multiply, yeah, we take this as X. X is equal to 30,000. 30,000 into 1,200 divided by 60,000. You can do this calculation. Okay, but because I can simply make out 60's half is 30, 1,200's half is 600. Okay, so the guy had applied for 600 shares. He has not paid final call. Why is this important? Because he applied for 1,200. He has been offered 600. Okay, or allotted 600. That means at the time of application, he has paid extra money. How much of money he paid? 9. Okay, which is the total of these two. The extra money that he paid. Okay, this is only and only Shekhar. Okay, Shekhar. At the time of application, he paid excess. He has paid an excess of 9 into 600, which is 5,400. Now, at the time of first and final call, okay, at the time of first and final call, he has not paid some money. Now, you need to keep in mind that the people in category B, okay, how much would they be expected to pay at the time of allotment? 8 into the number of shares. How many shares has he been allotted? 600. 8 into 600 is 4,800. So how much is left? 5,400 minus 4,800. I think we have 600. Okay, what we have over here is 600. All right, so 600 is what he's paid extra. But now at the time of first and final call, how much is he expected to pay? He is expected to pay 3 per share into 600 per share, which is 1,800. So at the time of first and final call, he was supposed to pay 1,800, but his balance was 600. So how much has he not paid? Well, and that is what we will put in the calls in areas. Okay, 1,200. And now we can work backwards for bank. Okay, so 3 lakhs minus 30 is 2 lakh 70, minus 1,000 is 2 lakh 69, minus 200 will be 2 lakh 68, 800. Okay, and please do the math yourself. Now, what is this going to be? Being first and first and final call money received, except Shekhar allotted. Okay, and again, I'm doing much more than what the marking scheme also requires. Okay, it's up to you. Just make a short summary here. Okay, whatever. In category B. Okay, not needed. Category B. End of story. All right. Next, anything else? Have they asked us to cancel shares? Have they asked us to do anything? Let us see. Open calls in arrears, calls in advance. Okay, now remember the calls in arrears account gets closed if we cancel shares. Calls in advance, if you check, we have opened it. We opened it. Calls in advance was opened here for 30,000 and closed over here for 30,000. We have not been asked to do anything else beyond this. Okay, it's a slightly lengthy sum because I have taken a little extra time showing these calculations. Okay, but if you do it quickly, if you have understood these notes, okay, you can do it much, much more faster. I understand there's a lot of calculation in this. If you have any doubt, feel free to message in the comments. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Take care.